was born in a coal camp, stars at my head, mountains as far as I could see. Went to work every day and brought home a big pay. There was honey in the horn for me. Then the coal dust blows like a dark summer snow, but I don't hear the roar of the tipple anymore, or the whine of the trucks on the line. The town's all gone, it's gone away. The town's all gone, it's gone away. The town's all gone, it's gone away. The people are strong, the wind has blown away.
On February the 26th, 1972, a coal waste dam collapsed at the head of a crowded hollow in southern West Virginia. In the ensuing flood, 125 people were killed. Most of the 16 small mining communities along Buffalo Creek were demolished, and 4,000 people were left homeless. The Pittston Company, owners of the dam, denied responsibility for the disaster, claiming it was an act of God. Several years later, the Pittston Company settled a number of lawsuits out of court, although they never accepted responsibility. This film looks at the efforts to rebuild the Buffalo Creek community in the years after the disaster.
I've not wrote anything about the flood after this. You know, I think it says it all, pretty much. I don't know if I'll write anything else about the flood or not, you know. It's Friday late on the summer side of this West Virginia town, wishing it was another West Virginia town, maybe on some other West Virginia riverbank. Riverbank, beautiful as autumn in your mind. Here in this $75 room, I remember things and more things. I've forgotten nothing. My thoughts are as clear as the empty vodka bottle on my windowsill. I remember a dusty afternoon lunch in the churchyard 10 years ago. Every detail as close as it can be to me. My thoughts run ragged, one right after another, like seconds and minutes that turn into hours and days. Thoughts and thoughts that turn into nightmares. The point in your life where thoughts take the place of time passing. That old license plate on the wall calls out a past best forgotten, and I've forgotten now some names of those I knew, some faces of misplaced people. Those people are lost to me, and I've forgotten a Friday night rain and a Saturday morning pain. No particular Saturday morning. I said I'd forgotten that. I can't remember the dead dogs I pulled out of the mud in houses, wishing and hoping and good God above praying it wasn't some child still warm yet stiff from the mud. I said I can't remember the watermarks on houses condemned, and the watermarks on people condemned, and the watermarks zigzagging the mountainsides for 10 miles down the holler. I've forgotten the story of poor Ms. Withrow, buried to the neck for hours, and saying a prayer thanking the good Lord she had survived, telling the sickened workers not to worry, she was warm, God had taken care of her while she waited. And I've forgotten the look in Mr. Johnson's eyes on that Saturday morning, the way he stared at me laying down in that rubble like that, genitals torn completely off his naked, tormented body. It showed in his eyes when I shook him, asking for an answer. I swear it did. I swear, damn it, I can't forget, not this late at night.
We have 2 pots of roses, and we'd like to present a rose to each of you that is representing your families. In remembrance of
Mike King, Robert A. Murray, Thomas Vanatter, Leonard E. Butcher, Grady Michael Wall,
Frank Lee Workman Sr., Kimberly K. Bailey, Augustin Miller, Sylvia Albright, Mary B. Markham, Goldie Marie Sickles.
Alicia Dempsey, Danetta Lynn Lester, Thelma Dillon, Wendell Dallas Osborne, Edith Blankenship, and Lillian Carter.
Anita Owen Smith, Herbert Peters, unidentified, Diana McCoy, Kimberly McCoy, Harold Dillon, Larry Wall, Kathy Wall.
May Gerald, Henrietta Owens, Gladys Staten, Mason Queen.
Our children was raised together. They wasn't like neighbors, they was family. I traveled over this old holler many a day with maybe 2 families in my car to the doctor. My next door neighbor would take my carburetor and put it on his car. I'd take his tires off and put it on mine. That's the kind of neighbors we was. We didn't run and knock on the door and say, "Can I do?" We went and opened the door and walked in and did do. We just worked together. I guess you could say we took care of one another. We joined everything. We belonged to the PTA, the Scouts, Cub Scouts, all communities affairs, churches and stuff like that. And every morning to us was a Sunday morning. A smile, a good morning, hi, how are you? That meant so much to us. We don't get that no more. We don't see it no more. It's a loss. It is. You know, a smile is worth $1 million sometimes. And we don't get that no more. We get vacant stares. We get frowns. We get worries. It'll never have another homey atmosphere. That's the only thing I can tell you, really, that to define it, it was home.
I was one of the few psychologists that was available during the Buffalo Creek disaster in 1972. Some of the emotional problems and psychophysiological problems were headaches, some colitis, different type of stress reactions. There was an increase in alcohol consumption. The families become more disruptive within themselves, more arguments. There was an increase in accidents, people just running off the road, for instance. There was an extensive amount of depression, guilt, and anxiety.
I don't know, I was real confused for a long time, for years and years after the flood. I couldn't really zone in on what was happening. You know, I knew people was dead, and dogs were dead, and people, you know, was out of homes and stuff. I was real busy. You know, everybody pitched in, and, you know, I didn't really have time to think about what was going on.
The reaction was good so far as the cleanup and rescue effort, recovering of bodies, and bulldozing some of the debris out of the way. The National Guard and the Army Corps of Engineers did a fairly good and thorough job on that. But very little was done to deal with the human problems which this terrible disaster had caused among thousands of people throughout the valley. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, sent in some trailers very quickly, and there was an immediate problem about where to put these trailers. The coal companies, of course, didn't want to put on land that they hoped to be able to mine. And when HUD herded people into some 13 trailer camps, it was done in a very arbitrary manner. It broke up communities. People had been ripped up by the roots and forced into what were almost concentration camps.
I lived at the Ackerville Trailer Park. They call it the Gestapo. The one at Green Valley, they called it Little Peyton Place. They never could keep track of their children. People was distrustful. They see no peace, no rest. They put strangers in them head trailers among our people that we didn't know. It was frightful. And you'd hear mothers cry and worry and wonder when they was going to get to go back on their properties. You see, that wasn't home to them. And they couldn't look into the future. They didn't have nothing to look to.
Even though we had strongly suggested on the relocation to keep the natural groupings together as much as possible, but apparently they were just haphazardly placed, and the people who had lived together for years and their fathers and forefathers had all lived closely together were disbanded, broken up. They were put next to strangers. They had no one that they could really risk themselves with and to talk with, to share the common feelings, and they felt like they were alone in the world. And then, unfortunately, it'll take, in my opinion again, probably 2 generations for them really to resolve all the anxiety that has lingered on.
That used to be a trailer court. But you can see them had trailers till you die. This is the lower end of Lundale. Lundale lost everything in Laredo. Everything here is new. They ain't nothing, wasn't nothing. It's just like somebody took a magic wand and wiped it off. This whole bottom was wiped out. This is the main road. It went just exactly right here.
Did it take, like, being so wide, did it take a whole row of houses?
It took 3 rows. There was 3 rows of houses in here. See these alleys through here?
Yeah.
There was an alley in front of every house. Now, one of my sons lives right there. This is my property, Mimi.
This is where you lived before.
That's where, and I got that playground put in there after the dam broke. All this is in here new. See, this is all wiped out. See here?
Rows of houses here.
Yeah, my daddy's property sit right there. That was daddy's tree right there. My brother was washed off his property right there where you see that log laying. Now this was a big community. See the highway going right through there?
Yeah.
Now let me show you. Now, Ladybug, you can just get your little rear end off. There was homes here, 3 rows of them. 1, 2, 3, went clear back. Now this is the property I was telling you about that the highway department bought for the highway. And the people went to buy it back and they said they couldn't sell it to them. Well, what in the name of God's going on here? Howdy. Guess you know what I'm doing, don't you? No. I'm checking out your property for you.
Checking my property? Well, good.
I'm telling him about it now. She's one of the ones they turned down. That's Miss Webb.
Turned down for what?
She wanted her property back right down there, and they wouldn't let her have it. Told her that it wasn't for sale, and they turned around and sold another man, and she had to buy below me. Now, all this property in here was full of houses. But still yet, they would not let us come back.
The State Highway Department was insisting that it needed to have time to engineer and plan out the rights-of-way for a superhighway. And I got a lot of calls from individuals who wanted to go back into the area where they'd had their homes. They were told by the state highway people, you can't go there because there's no water and sewage there, and we need that land for the superhighway. The emphasis kept being placed on the priority of the highway which to them seemed to be far more important than getting people back into their homes. We called together all of the state and federal agencies that we felt might have some input redeveloping the area, and initiated a planning process which resulted in this document, the Buffalo Valley Redevelopment Plan. So our initial approach was try to concentrate the redevelopment in what we're then calling 3 nodes, which you'll hear quite a bit about the node concept down there even yet. But essentially what was done was looked for the area where the most total destruction had occurred, so the land was basically available, and concentrate amenities in these areas and encourage people to rebuild and resettle in that area. The reconstruction of the road was included as part of the redevelopment plan, along with water and sewer systems, health services, recreation, and other components of restoring community life.
When you come down to the nitty-gritty of it, the people really didn't ask for anything. The government came in here and telling them what they were going to do. Well, that's because they had expectations then, and then they wanted it.
I don't know whether, what happened, whether funding wasn't available or what, but the water and sewage system was completed in 1977 instead of September 1972. Yeah. The road took a long time to complete, and during that time people were really in limbo about going back to their homes, to their lots to rebuild, because they didn't know whether it was going to be taken for this or that or the other. A lot of the problems is just nobody ever made an attempt to keep them.
And I don't think people wanted the world, but it's when you come in and you say there will be 750 homes, there will be immediate recreation, there's going to be a water and sewer system, and then it's not coming. That pile on top of an already traumatic event such as a flood.
Really, I think that a whole lot of the dishonesty that went on in this creek was due to having broken promises. And
turned the people's attitude.
It turned their attitude,
around. They,
completely around. It was really rough.
People's not the same yet.
No, and they'll never be the same.
Used to be you'd go up through these camps here, and you stop at the community, first thing you know, there's 25 or 30 around you. Everybody talking to one another. You go up through there now, and you stop your car, ain't nobody gonna come to your car to see what you want.
Well, in fact, you debate on whether to stop close to their fence or not.
Well, that's true.
There's no question that the building of the highway, many things affected a person's options in terms of returning to their initial piece of land. In fact, looking at retrospect in how the resettlement occurred, there weren't that many people really returned to their original piece of land. If everything had gone according to initial perceptions and optimum projections, we would have tried to create a suburban quality of life in nodules in Buffalo Valley. I don't think anybody really expected that to happen, but if you don't set your goals high, you end up much lower than you're shooting for. I think what we were shooting for realistically was, safe, decent, sanitary living conditions in the valley where people had some choice to choose the type of dwelling they wanted, the lifestyle they want to accommodate, and have some degree of protection in doing that. I don't think we got quite to there.
I'll go back just a little bit further than the flood. I'll go back, I'll say 15 years ago. If either one of you all would have told me that I couldn't have got anything from my state, or my government would have lied to me, you'd have had me to fight.
Me too.
Right now, brother, she's up in limbo. I say they'll all lie to you. Every one of them will give you a nice talk, and they'll put a picture on there that, by God, you can almost see it in the dark. But it's not there, folks.
That's true. The thing that frustrates me about Buffalo Creek is I come up here today and I see not the communities that I knew as a child, but sort of scattered homes, a loss of community. People face death of friends and relatives, but when also everything that was once familiar to them is also gone, the trauma is double. And I think Buffalo Creek stands as a symbol of how important communities are.
Where are we now?
Now that was Saunders Camp right there where you see all that stockpile.
What kind of place was it?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was the most modernest little community you ever looked at. Oh, there's about 35 families lived in there. That was a whole complete community. One of the prettiest little places you ever seen. Little modern homes. Everybody was so happy there. The big white church sat right yonder in that dip.
What happened? How come there's a stock?
Piston wouldn't let them come back on it. And the people went to federal court and made them buy them some property down at Lundale. They use it now to stock. They didn't want nobody back. Coal companies didn't want none of us back.
How come?
They went right on building this. They didn't offer to make them people a way to live. They had this built before they ever made provisions for them people. God, Mimi, I don't know. The governor let them by with it. That's all I can tell you. Here's where the dam broke. They keep check on it, see how they drain it now. And, well, they was all back to work in 5 days if you'll just read your papers.
Wait till time.
Because of the fact that almost 3/4 of the land in Logan County is owned by a very few coal companies, lumber companies, oil and utility empires, it's very, very difficult for the average individual to find a place to live. Virtually all of the level land is being reserved by those companies that hope to extract the mineral resources. After Buffalo Creek, you had a combination not only of the State Highway Department saying, hey, we want all this land and many feet on either side for a highway, but you had the coal companies vetoing the use of land to get people back into their homes. And this is a perennial problem in an area that is dominated by a small number of industries the way Logan County is. It's a problem not only in Buffalo Creek, it's a problem throughout the county where if you want to resettle people that have been on Buffalo Creek, you can't find the land elsewhere. And there have been cases of whole communities that have been obliterated because of the need for a new coal tipple or preparation plant.
Early on in the going, we suggested to the people of the valley that one of the solutions available to them in trying to get control of their destiny was to pursue incorporation. The people did start to push for incorporation and pursued as far as they could and ultimately weren't successful.
The Logan County Courthouse blocked us on incorporation, but the simple reason was we wouldn't agree for the coal companies to be set outside of the taxes. And if we paid taxes, we felt like they were to pay taxes.
Well, the coal industry has great power over the politics of West Virginia. And of course, property taxes are necessary in order to sustain the school system and to build the necessary water systems or recreation areas. Yet in Logan County, when you have 10 of the biggest companies controlling 60% of the land and only paying 26% of the property taxes, well, that's outrageous. It's no wonder that you have this syndrome of low property taxes, bad schools, bad roads, and poor people.
You've got a railroad train 30 feet from this living room that runs out every day loaded with coal, going to Boston, Chicago, and whatnot. And then, like you say, where are the fire trucks? Where are the school buildings? Where are the recreation centers? You had to raise that money, but out of the people who live here, well, that's fine. But why didn't those corporate citizens also contribute? It was a coal company that caused this flood. It's coal companies that own this valley. It's coal companies that are going to cause another flood if we don't change some of those patterns.
Well, they make their money and they'll move out. You see, their headquarters out, I think it's in New York. Their officials has homes in Florida and California and places like that. Once they're through, they move out, you see. They leave their debris, their mess, their junk. They don't care about us anymore. So why put all that money in there? They're going to leave.
How many of their wives have been here, see how we live? How many of the owners that own stock in the coal companies, how many have been to our area and looked it over? They don't know how we live.
How many of their children have to go to school in our schools?
That's
how many
right.
of them have to die in our hospitals because we don't have adequate health care? Not very many of them.
And sometimes we have to break some of that pattern somehow. So I think Buffalo Creek is symbolic and represents a good deal of the problems in this state, and I think in several of the Appalachian states.
The domination of the coal companies and the land that they owned is really one of the keys to why Buffalo Creek in this period, 10 years after, has not really fully recovered. It's still under the domination and thumb of the coal companies. But there are more people than there are exploiters. Therefore, there ought to be an opportunity to organize the people to insist that they be given treatment as human beings instead of mere vassals in a fiefdom.
From the conversations I've had with people, you know, they just tell me, look, it's over, forget about it. But they're crazy. You know, when you forget about it, that's when you're crazy. You know, if you think about it every day, and I don't know, as long as it stays with me, I'm gonna be sane.
I was born in a holler that was lonesome and long, where the sun didn't shine all day, but the banjos in the night and the stars' big light was pleasures I wanted to stay. How could anybody know that the next year or so we would all be traveling o'er the mountains and plains, trying to plant our roots again? It's been a long time since I've been home. It's been a long time since I've been home. It's been a long time since I've been home. And I ain't going soon. No, I ain't going back soon.